Hi everyone, so we are in a little change of venue, so I apologize, but we are going to talk about the Yardzee Take-Home Kit. So in this case, we're going to go over what you are receiving in your kit, along with how you are going to create your project, and then look at the fair book as well. So I apologize, we're in a little bit of a different location, so lighting's a little different, so hang in there with me. So let's talk about what is in your kit. So at this time, you will have received a bucket. This is your bucket to store all of your project items in. These are donated by Mead Lumber along with your wood. So thank you to Mead Lumber for donating all of these items. Other things that you are going to find in your bucket is 6 wood blocks. These are going to be your dice. You are also going to receive a Yarkle score sheet. You are also going to receive some stencil pieces for your dice. These are to help you with the dots of your dice. You're also going to receive some foam brushes. If you're planning on painting or staining, you can use these to help you with those. You are going to receive paint. Now, your small paint is for the dice dots. These are the ones for the center. And then you will receive a big bottle. If you planned to paint yours, you will receive a big bottle of paint in your choice of color, or if you chose to stain, you will receive a jar of stain. You are also going to receive, excuse me, I have a couple of brushes down here, but you're going to receive a dot dauber. This is to help paint those dots with your stencil. And I think that's everything. I had 2 kits in here, so there might be a couple of items here that are also doubled. Okay, so a couple of things that I am going to suggest right off the bat. Now, we are putting them all in the bucket to get them to you. However, one thing I have noticed is that the wood in the buckets is a little damp yet. So when you get your project, I'm going to suggest setting it outside, letting it kind of dry out a little bit. They're going to be leaching some moisture, and you really don't want that within your project to begin with. So set them out. You can kind of see that some of my buckets have water in them because we've left them closed. So take your lids off right away and make sure that they are ready to go. You are also going to receive, and I don't have it in here, 2 pieces of sandpaper. One is a 220 grit and, or excuse me, 120 grit, and the other one is a finer sandpaper, like an extra fine. So what you need to do first with your project is, once you let these sit out, you're going to notice they all still have rough cut on them. If you are entering these into the fair, you cannot leave them the way they are. So you cannot just go ahead and paint them. You need to sand them. So you are going to go ahead and sand them first, using your rough grit first, and then come in with your fine grit because you want to make sure they're nice and smooth on all 6 sides. Now this is 6 sides and 6 dice, so it's going to take a little bit of time. However, if you want to use an electric sander, if you have one at home, you can definitely do that. However, the office now has a electric sander that, if you would like, you can come in, schedule a time, and borrow our sander to sand your dice at the extension office. So again, you can come in with your buckets and sand your dice to make sure that they're all nice and smooth. So we will have sandpaper there. It is one that we can use, the sandpaper that came with your buckets. So that is going to be step number 1. Sand your dice. First, actually, that's step 1B. 1A is making sure that your dice are nice and dry. So it might take a little bit of time. I know that the week that we are handing these out, it's supposed to be rainy and wet. So obviously, try and set them in a place, set them out, let them kind of air out for a little bit of time. Otherwise, they're all going to be really damp. And again, once you really start working with them, they're just going to kind of leach moisture, and that's not going to be very good. So, all right, for the purpose of today's videos. Oh, the other thing that will be coming with them, we asked you for a logo. So let's talk while these dice are drying. You can work on your bucket. So like we said, we gave you a bucket for you to use as a storage container for your dice and the game, since it is more of an obviously an outdoor project, an outdoor game. So your buckets come with the Mead Lumber logo. We love Mead Lumber for going ahead and donating these all for us. That is awesome. The other side has a Milwaukee logo. Now, we did ask you to choose a logo for your bucket. Originally, we thought there would be space on the bucket to put your Yardzee logo. So inside your bucket, once we found out the buckets had the dual sides, we thought that it would be easiest. You have a couple of options. You could either place your logo on the side of the bucket yet, or you could, if you wanted to, put it on the lid. So it's really kind of up to you. If you want to do the lid, perfectly fine. However, if you still would like to place it on the bucket, here is the supplies inside the kit and how you can do that. All right, inside your kit, you are going to receive a vinyl, 2 pieces of vinyl actually. One is a big white sheet of vinyl, and the other is the logo that you selected. So it'll either say your family name, or excuse me, let's use my name, the Hacking Camp Family Yardzee set, or it'll say Yardzee set, Yarkle set. So it'll have both of the designs on there at the same time. Okay. Now, obviously, on the buckets, there's not really a great space. If you wanted to, you could probably put them in between this logo here. However, that's not a lot of space. So if you would like, the designs are in black, so you could use them, like I said, here if you would like, or we can always cover up the Milwaukee logo here, and that is what that white sheet of vinyl is for. So that white sheet of vinyl is a 12 by 12 vinyl. Now, it is essentially from the bottom to the top up here is about 12 inches, but it's a really tight 12 inches. So if you would like to, you can trim your vinyl to just match what the vinyl design and cutout is, and then just place that sheet here. So what I'm going to suggest is the first thing you are going to do, it is easier to take your black design that you've picked for the side of your bucket and put that on the white sheet of vinyl if you've chose to do that. Okay, putting the vinyl on something that has a curved side is a little bit more of a challenge, so lay that flat, rub everything really good down on the vinyl, flip it over, peel slowly the back so you have that sticky clear transfer tape in your design there. Peel that slowly off, and then you can flip that over, and when you get it where you want it, place it down, rub your design on, and then you have your design on the white sheet of vinyl. Now obviously that was a lot of hand gestures for no vinyl, but I did not have my vinyl with me as I am doing and bringing you this video from my house. So my vinyl is not here, just hang with me there if you need to. We do have a video in our coasters set of videos that does show you how to use the vinyl, so you can go back and reference that if you would like. So first, you're gonna take the black design logo, transfer it to your white design logo. Now once you have that white sheet ready to go with your other logo, now it's time to transfer to the bucket. We would suggest trimming. You do not need, I think most of those logos are like 8.5, 9 inches tall, so you do not need the full 12-ish inches. So go ahead and trim the bottom half of that white vinyl to prepare on your bucket. This is going to take 2 people to help you with. You are then going to transfer your white sheet of vinyl to the bucket. Now the easiest thing to do is take the top edge or the side edge, whichever is the easiest for you, of that vinyl, start peeling back the backside sticker from that white vinyl just along the top so it's all sticky on one place. Have someone hold your bucket so that it's still. Start at the top and then just slowly peel the vinyl off underneath of it. I am also going to link a couple of videos on your description sheet of how to stick vinyl so you can kind of see. It's easier to not pull all of the back off of the vinyl and then stick it, because what's going to happen is you're going to get air bubbles. So it's easier to just slowly peel back, stick that top edge or a side edge on, and then slowly, kind of like applying wallpaper, you're going to slowly pull the back off and use a tool like a card or something to scrape out all the air bubbles. What you will end up with is a white square on the side of your bucket that has the design for your project. Okay, try and make sure to eliminate all those air bubbles out from the side of your design as possible with that. So if you do not want to do that and you want to just transfer, like we said earlier, your design into that open space, you can do that. If you want to transfer that design onto your lid, you can do that as well. But that is where and what you will want to do for your bucket. Another thing I would suggest is I'm kind of rubbing my bucket and touching it, is it's a little bit dirty and gritty. Go ahead and just give it a good wash and a spray so it's nice and clean. All right, so let's pretend that my blocks have been outside, they've been drying, they don't feel wet anymore. I'm gonna go ahead and pretend these are sanded, because I'm just gonna show you the one side of them. Again, sanding with it, if you're sanding, you want to go with the grain. So the grain is the way that the kind of the pattern of the wood runs. So when I'm sanding with the grain this direction. I'm not going to go this way because that's going to scratch. Now on this, obviously the side cut here, you're just going to kind of go in the various directions because they all come in different ways. These are also weather treated lumber, which is why you're going to see little streaks of green in there. Some of these might not come off all the way, and that is okay. Just go ahead and sand it as best you can and get them down. But the weather treated lumber is going to last longer outside than it is if we would use just regular lumber. If you would use these outside, and let's say they got set out over the winter, your non-treated wet or lumber is going to kind of break down and have chips and be a little bit worse for wear, more than if you had the weather treated. These are going to last longer. Okay, I'm still going to recommend at the end that you put a coat of protectant on it at some way, shape, or form. Okay. All right, so let's talk about how you are going to prepare your dice. I'm going to zoom in here just a little bit. Okay, so, and then I'm going to zoom right back out. Sorry, that was really, really close. Okay, so if you have stain, again, we have a set of videos in the coasters projects that do show you how to properly stain. I would reference that too. A little stain goes a long way. And, I mean, they're, like I said, they're not super, if they were super, super dry, then they're going to absorb that stain. You do not need a lot of stain because it's not going to eat into the wood. It's going to sit on top because they are a little damp. So, take an old cloth, use an old sponge. I use old t-shirts, and then I just do some dip with my t-shirt, wear gloves, dip in with my t-shirt into the stain, and then I go with the grain of the wood. Okay, so do your first layer. Obviously there might be a little bit more than what you need, so then you come in at the end and wipe it off with an extra cloth, and then let that dry. Repeat the process until it's the color you want. Okay, so again, you can either reference back to the coasters video that we have of how to stain, or when you're staining, take a cloth, probably not the brushes. I would suggest using a cloth of some sort. You can use the brushes, there's nothing wrong with it. I feel like the cloth is a little easier to use, in my opinion. So after it's all sanded and dried, use your cloth, dip it into the stain, rub your stain onto your wood, make sure you get all the places of it, and then if you have extra, wipe it off. Okay, you want it to be I would do a couple of sides, maybe this side and this side at a time, then sit and let it dry, because you don't want, the stain will leak down the sides if you have extras, and it's going to show almost kind of like this here. If this would be stain, let's say that's some stain, it'll puddle down the side and it won't look very good. Okay, so you want to make sure that you are wiping it completely down first before you go. All right, let's pretend that I am, or not pretend, we are going to say I am painting my block. Okay, again, your big bottle of paint is your block color. The little oh my goodness, the little bottle is your dot color. And we are going to go ahead and paint these. Now I'm going to just do one side because, again, mine are not stained, and this is for the purpose of demonstration. So I'm going to get this bottle open. Okay, so with the paint, I would say you can either pour this into a bowl or a plate and then take your brush and go across it. I, for the point of this, am just going to go ahead and put a little bit on, because like I said, I'm just going to do one little bit as an example. Okay, now I would also shake your paint ahead of time. I forgot to shake it because we don't want it to be super watery, and that's okay. All right, so I have my paint on here, and paint's going to be the same way when you're using it. I want to go ahead and make sure that I am painting with the green, that I am getting all complete and even coverage. You might need to paint your dice a couple of times to make sure that you have even coverage here, because depending on how thick you want your paint, some people might want to be able to see the wood grains underneath, and some people might not. So once I have a side done, the next thing I'm going to do is turn my dice to make sure that I do not have any extra paint dripping down the side. If you have any paint that drips, it's going to show that drip line. Okay, so I have my paint there. Okay, so you would do that. Again, do a couple of sides, let it sit and dry, and then you can come back over if you want to not be able to see the lines or anything again once they're dry. So I would say if you want an even coat all the way through, give it about or an even coverage all the way through and not see anything, you're probably going to want 2 to 3 different 2 to 3 coats. Okay, again, that's why we got you the big 16-ounce bottles of these, but these all come from Hobby Lobby, so if you would happen to need more, you can go get more. All right, so let's say all of our dice are done with that, and we are ready to do the stencil. So I'm going to go ahead and just rotate this over to a side here. Okay, so I have this painted or stained, whatever you want. Just make sure that you give it some breaks. This is not a project that you are going to be able to do the night before the fair. You are going to want to make sure you have taken your time and have all of this ready. Okay, your stencils, there is one for the 1 side, 2 side, 3 side, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, you are going to have them, they are all pretty much 3.5 by 3.5 inches, which is the exact same measurements as your dice. So once you get them, you are truly just going to use, you can tape them if you want, and then you're going to use your dot color. Now, some of you have a glow-in-the-dark paint. Now, glow-in-the-dark is going to likely need a base. Okay, you can test it out on one if you would like. I would say the glow-in-the-darks are 100% going to need a couple of coats on the dice dots. Most of them are all colored, so they should be okay. However, if you want to make sure that that glow is standing out, something I would recommend is maybe using white and putting white as your base layer for your dots, and then coming in over top and putting that glow-in-the-dark paint on top of it. So That way it just gives that glow-in-the-dark paint something to shine against in the back, and it will probably work a little better just because it's going to absorb that light from there. Okay? All right. With your paint, put this on a plate or a bowl or something. Then you're going to take your dots sponge. I'm going to go ahead. Taking these little things off are not my favorite thing in the world, but that is okay. So you're going to take these off. Do as I say, not as I do. Don't use your teeth. You don't want to ruin your teeth. Okay, so maybe, you know what, we have a little bit of purple. Let's say my purple is the color that I'm going to use. Okay, so I'm going to pour a little bit of my paint. Okay, that's my plate. I'm going to take my circle dot sponge. I'm going to make sure that my stencil is down. I want to make sure it's secured. And then I'm going to come in and with my sponge, I'm just going to come in and tap around. If you're afraid that it might bleed underneath the stencil, something else you could do is you could use Mod Podge and go around the dot stencil. The Mod Podge seals the edges so that nothing would bleed underneath them. Okay? So I would just, like I said, tap and dot. Don't just go one big thing, because that's gonna, when you force that sponge to squeeze, it's gonna squeeze out at the bottom. So just doing little taps is going to keep it from leaking underneath more. Okay? So see here, I squeezed, and that's where I'm getting this little blobby blob. Okay? So you want to make sure you're holding those spots down a little better, dabbing lightly, and then pulling straight up. Don't go down and squeeze, because that spreads that paint. Okay, I didn't hold very tight on this end, which is why that's looking the way it is. Like I said, I would highly suggest using some Mod Podge and going around the inside first, letting that dry for a couple of moments, and then coming back and doing this. That way you get a nice even coat and coverage. All right, so you're going to do that with all of your dice. Once your dice, and the nice thing is these pieces will hold up. If you do happen to need a new set of the cardstock dice pieces, let us know and we can help you out. All right, so once these are done, then I would go ahead and weather seal them again. So using something like a weather sealant spray, or you can use a polyurethane. If you're talented enough to epoxy the top, you can certainly do that as well. It's really all up to you and how you want to do it. Okay? All right, let's go over really quick what we've talked about so far. We've talked about all of the supplies that, I'm going to zoom out here, come in your bucket. We talked about what those are used for. We've talked about our steps, specifically how to apply the design to your bucket, what we need to do with our dice right away. Remember, set them out, let them dry for a little bit. You might notice some dampness in your bucket if you leave the lids on. And then sand. You want to get them rough sanded first so that there's no sharp edges, and then come in with a smooth sand to make sure they are nice and smooth. You don't want to have a judge grab it and catch or get a splinter. We've then talked a little bit about how to stain or how to paint your dice. And then we talked about how to apply your dots. Okay, at the very end, the last thing you will need to do is use the sealant coat on there, so then that way, like, your paint don't get scratched or anything like that. Okay. All right, so let's talk fair projects. I do not have my fair book with me, so this project, depending on how you get it set up, could go into the I apologize, I did have a fair book. So let's take a look at our fair book. These are going to go into our section C. There's a couple of different places that we could enter it. You could do in human development under our what it takes to be a babysitter. You could do it under a toy game or activity. Now, one thing that you would want to maybe add to make it that toy game or activity is we give you the score sheets. You would want to go ahead and write rules for the game, and how they would work, what you would need to do, and then include that in the bucket as well. Okay, so like these, Yarkle does do a good job of explaining the point system, and same here. So you would see that, but you would need to include game rules. So things that you could do in this one is on page 78. I would say you could do this as math, because especially in Yarkle we are adding, so they're going to have to do number recognition, they are going to have to add. The goal is to get to 10,000 points, so that would be something you would want to do for those. Okay, would probably be the easiest one in our what it takes to be a babysitter. Another place that you could enter it is going to be in our oh, before I forget, when you enter it in the how to or what it takes to be a babysitter, this toy game activity, there are things that you do have to enter for that. Okay, there are going to be questions that you will need to answer. You can find them on page 77. So answering, where did I get the idea for this exhibit? What decisions did I make to make sure it's safe? What age group is this going to be used for? Obviously, probably not birth to 18 months, probably not a toddler, probably not a preschooler, maybe more a middle child. Okay, oops, excuse me. You're also going to want to do what is, how is the toy game intended to be used for, as well. Okay, so then just make sure you read through those, write that up, and have it ready. Additionally, you are going to want another option here would be design decisions. Okay, design decisions. You could enter this into a accessory outdoor living, would be a good place for it, as it is something that you would use in the outdoors. And then probably not visual arts. You could use it in Design My Place. We talked a couple of these different types of things. Simple accessories. You could use it in the woods class over here, which also, as I go back here, you could use possibly accessory original made from wood. Okay, this one I think would be a little harder to classify as, because really it's all been done for you and all you're doing is painting, staining, and putting dots on. I think your best bet is either going to be in the accessory outdoor living or in the game activity. Okay, we're gonna have that sheet that says all of the workshops and classes ready here very soon, so you can see where we would best place them. All right, as a review, we've talked about what comes in this kit, how to create this kit, along with where it's going to go in the fair book. If you have any additional questions, please reach out to us. If you're having problems with your vinyl or would like to use the sander from the office, please reach out to us as well, and we'd be more than happy to help you out. So once again, thank you for taking part in our Take and Make projects, and we hope you have a great time. Now remember, this one is going to take you a little extra time to do, so plan your time wisely, and we will see you soon.